turning to a slightly different topic, I don't know if you have been, I guess this sort of fits with our previous topic insofar as it's kind of one flavor of response to these large global problems. But I don't know if you've been following lately, there's a new book out called SuperFreakonomics, and the authors take up this notion that the way to solve climate change is with these sort of direct engineering, geoengineering solutions. So you, for instance, blow a bunch of sulfur particles up into the atmosphere and block some of the sun's light, cool things down, and then call it good. It's cheap, it's easy, it's reversible, and then one of the authors was interviewed, and so the first thing I thought of when I read that was well, what about ocean acidification? It's the ocean that's holding most of the carbon, and it's killing the ocean. You know, the atmospheric carbon is not even our primary problem. And somebody asked him, one of the authors, about that in an interview, and he said, "Oh, well, the ocean is getting acidic. We'll just dump a base in it, sort of
right.
base." And it's this flavor of kind of rationalistic. I think of it as sort of very Enlightenment thinking. Sort of, here's the shape of the problem. Man will overcome. Put men scientists on it, and they'll just go bash the problem with some, sort of one-to-one solution. And it's a very, very, very seductive way of thinking. These guys, I mean, the SuperFreakonomics authors have gotten huge attention for it, and particularly people I think who aren't immersed in this area, they hear that, oh, we could just spew particles in the atmosphere and call it good, and then we wouldn't have to go through this drudgerous process of trying to get all the world's countries to come together and sign a treaty, and everybody has to turn off their lights, and it's just this one thing after another. If there's an easy way to do it, why not do it that way? So what's your take on this sort of engineering mindset that wants to tackle problems in this kind of way?
Well, one of the things that you would need to do for this to work would be to establish something approaching an international consensus that a given step 1 is needed, and 2, that it would work, and 3, that it would not work to anyone's disadvantage. And when you begin thinking of that, you could say, well, some country could just go ahead and do it on their own, or some small group of countries. The problem with that is that it sets the stage for conflict among countries in terms of working together to solve problems, and what might be to one country's advantage could turn out to be to another country's disadvantage. And you just mentioned, we try to reduce the influx of sunlight by putting all these particles in the upper atmosphere, but how does that affect the acidification of the oceans? Because that sulfur eventually comes down, and sulfur is usually in water has an acidic effect. So that's one of the things we have to think about, is how we would do that. And my own sense is that while this may be an appealing sort of idea, that in reality it probably wouldn't work, because we don't have enough knowledge of how the Earth's ecosystem performs to take these major steps. We know that even minor steps we've taken in the past, some of them accidental, have led to enormously disruptive effects. So I'm not a supporter of the idea that we can engineer technological fixes in a way that will work for the world.
Yeah, what I always want to ask is, okay, you have atmospheric CO2, so you build the carbon-eating trees or spew the sulfur particles in the atmosphere. Then you have the ocean. Okay, well, you dump a base in the ocean, fix that. Then you have the nitrogen cycle. Oh, so you make some robot that makes nitrogen, and then you have biodiversity, and then you sort of, you create a DNA bank and capture You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
you go from this one problem to the next with these engineering solutions, and I guess you sort of, depending on your proclivities, you either view that as, oh, this is man overcoming and man defeating challenges with his science, or you could view it as man desperately delaying the sort of more systematic and holistic reassessment of humanity's place on a finite Earth. And you know, I worry that we've become so used to being able to tweak our way out of problems that it's the former line of thinking that's...
I think one of the things that this approach assumes is that we know enough about how the Earth's ecosystem functions that we can intervene here and there to achieve specific goals without changing it in other ways. And I think that is, as your examples were just demonstrating, a naive view, if not a dangerous one, to say the least.